Hello everybody, my name is Sherrod Sebring, and today I'm going to be giving you a beginner guide on guitar in 2024. In this video, everything a beginner needs to know about how to start guitar and how to learn and take the steps they need to take to learn in an efficient way will be given to you in this video. Are you ready? Alright, so the first thing that we want to go over is really just knowing your guitar. What do I mean by that? I mean knowing the names of each string and knowing where each notes on the fretboard are. Knowing the names of the strings, that's something that you should start off with first and then learn the notes on the actual fretboard. So with the notes of the strings, if we're starting here on the bassiest note, this is low E, okay? This is A, D, G, B, and then we call that high E. Those two strings, that first string and the last string, are the same notes. They are just different pitches, right? They are both E. This is just high E and low E. That's it, right? So that's really important to know. A lot of people just use the reference of Eddie 8 Dynamite, Goodbye Eddie, right? So that's what I use, right, to reference to my strings. That helps me remember, right? So it's important just to really get to know your guitar in that way. And then also knowing the names of the frets on the boards. What I mean by that is just knowing where C is. So automatically I can tell you that C is the 5th fret of the G string right here. Now, it's important to be able to know that when you're doing things like improvising or learning new songs. You don't want to be searching for a really long time over like a backing track or over a song because you can't figure out where a note you need is, okay? A lot of people will tell you to practice like this. F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, D, E. Don't do that. I am warning you, do not do that because you're going to be able to know the notes on that strings, but you're not really learning them in a subconscious way, in an efficient way to where you're going to be able to jump to that note right when you want to. You want to be able to know where that note is everywhere on the fretboard. So in any position that you are in, you can automatically be able to go right to that note. Songs and backing tracks and rhythms are going to go too fast for you to be searching around slow, and using that exercise that I just showed you, it's a bad exercise. Don't use that. What I would suggest is learning where each note is on every string, right? So I know that the first fret of the E string is F. Now let's find F on the next string. Oh, here goes F on the A string. Let's find F on the A string. Oh, here's F on the A string, right? Now, I already knew where F was at on each of those notes, right? But you may have to practice that, right? That's kind of how you have to do things for a little bit until you can really get used to knowing where each note on the string is, okay? So I can play the F note on every string right now, right? And just show you how I would like you to practice. So we're gonna do F first. So F. Right? Now, most of those notes that I just played pretty much sound the same, and that's because they were all really the same. They were all just different pitches and on different strings. That's how I want you to practice. I want you to practice learning each note on every string. Let's do G next. So for G, right? I'm able to do that because I practiced it in a way to where I'm getting familiar with each string. And I promise if you practice it that way, you will be able to just jump to the notes when you want. It's going to take some practice. You may struggle with it for a little bit, but if you consistently practice that, you're just only going to get to know your guitar more and more and more. And it's going to help when you start learning different chord positions and different scale positions. So that's my tip for getting to know your guitar. The next thing that I would consider looking into after you have gotten to know your guitar, you know where the notes are on the fretboard, you know the names of these strings, I would suggest learning some basic skills in chords, right? I would suggest that you learn some basic scales first, at least learn one position. And here's why. A lot of people may tell you to learn chords first, but when you learn scales first and you learn how they work and you learn when you learn the scale formulas and the notes and the positions, right? That makes it easier for you to be able to build chords on your own. To be able to construct chords, it really helps to be able to know how scales work and how they relate to chords. Now, when it comes to learning skills, the one thing you want to make sure you don't do is just learn a whole bunch of positions. You want to make sure that you learn the scale formulas instead of the exact scale itself, right? I would suggest starting with the C major scale, okay? Because that one is a really easy one to do, right? So that's the C major scale, right? Now, the notes in that scale will give us everything we need to turn that into a chord, right? Now, when you do start learning chords, you should approach it the same way you learn scales. You should approach it learning chord formulas instead of just random chords off the internet, right? And I was just starting with a major chord, right? Now, the chord formula for a major chord is 1, 3, and 5, right? So if you're starting with your C major scale, the 1 of the C major scale is C, because that's the first note. The 3 of the C major scale is E, right? So we got our C and our E, we got our 1 and our 3, right? Now let's go find 5. To find 5, we just got to go through the rest of the scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, we found our 5. Our 5 is G, okay? So the 5th note of the C major scale is G. We have our C, our E, and our G. We have our 1, our 3, and our 5, okay? And there you go. You have a C major chord, right? Now, going back to what I was saying about knowing your fretboard and knowing your guitar, if you know where C is, C's right here. C's on the D string. I found C on the D string, right? So that's the first note of the C major chord, right? Now let's find E, right? If you know your fretboard, you may know that E's right here. The 9th fret of the G string is E, right? And then your next chord on the B string is G, right? So C, G, right? And once again, G is on that B string, right? E is on that G string, and then C is on that D string, right? So that is your C major chord, right? Now you can do this with any note. You can do this with C major or G sharp, right? If you use formulas for your chords and scales, you will be able to understand things so much more, and it's going to help you a lot more than trying to memorize 7 different scale positions or 7 different chord like positions. It's going to really stress you out. Don't try to burn those into your brain. Try to take the easy way out with this so you can understand it as fast as possible early. I would suggest going on Google maybe and researching one position. Okay, and then after that, after you get that down, try to go and hook up the scale formula. Okay, basically all the scale formula is just the number, the notes being numbered, right? So for our C major scale, let's say we have our regular C major scale, right? And let's say we want to turn that into a minor scale, right? The scale formula for the minor scale is 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and then back to the root. Okay, so that may be a lot to take in. That may take you a while to really get a hang of that or kind of really understand it. But it's really important that you continue to study it and you learn it in small bits. This is really just a stepping stone. This is the beginning of a lot of things that you could potentially be interested in learning in the future. about skills and chords. I would recommend starting with major skills and minor skills, major chords and minor chords, right? A lot of like pop songs, a lot of your favorite songs may only use these kind of chords anyway, right? So it's really important that you learn these first, right? And just stay on the right track and make sure you don't skip things. The third thing you're gonna want to learn is some songs, right? Now, most people would tell you when you first pick up the guitar, go ahead, learn some songs, and I have absolutely no problem with that. But I think learning songs is a lot easier once you've gotten to know your guitar a little better and you've gotten to at least get introduced to scales and chords. That's going to allow you to really be able to embrace the song you're learning and really, really understand what's going on in it. And the more you understand what's going on in the song, the better you can sound when you try and play over that song or play the notes of that song exactly. Now, I have a couple suggestions when you learn songs, okay? The first thing you need to make sure you don't do is do not rely heavily on tabs. Relying heavily on tabs is really a bad idea because it's only a matter of time before you run into a really, really cool song you want to learn, but you can't find the tabs for it anywhere, right? If you really, really want to get serious about guitar and be able to do things like play in bands or play in or orchestras, you're going to really need to be able to make sure you have at least a decent ear. You want to shoot for oral skills, ladies and gentlemen. And that is really just picking up notes by the ear. You don't got to be Charlie Puth or have perfect pitch or anything. Personally, me, I strive with this best when I actually have the instrument in my hand because I can try to find a note and play the note, right? I can try to find a note on a guitar. And once you found the note, from there, you can find out the key. You can find out if it's either major or minor. And this is where knowing skills really come into play. Let's say a song is in F major, right? And I'm looking around trying to find the note. And I find the note. This is F, right? On the G string. This is the F note that's on the G string. I found the note, right? So now, if I know that whatever the key of the song is, it has a really, really big relationship with F, right? And if it sounds happy, right, you can play over the scale. The more and more you learn songs by ear, the more and more you're going to be able to figure out what the key or what scale the song is being used in seconds. You're going to be able to figure out if it's major or if it's minor, right? The more and more you learn songs by ear, the more and more you're going to be able to use that as to your advantage, right? So don't skip the first two steps, all right? But going back to what I was saying, do not rely heavily on tabs. Use your ears, okay? Because your ears are really important. Eventually, you might get to a point in your playing where you want to learn improvisation or how to improvise, stuff like that. You're going to want to try to develop a really good ear. There is a software I would suggest for ear training, and it is called Teoria. It is a website with exercises on it that are for people that want to do ear training exercises, okay? They have a whole bunch of exercises on there. Just go in and check it out. I'll leave a link in the description, all right? But don't rely too heavily on that. The best ear training, in my opinion, is going on Spotify, hooking up your favorite songs, and just trying to find the notes in that song and trying to play at least the chorus. Try to play the chorus on guitar, right? Really experiment and just really try to learn things with your ears, not with tabs. I'm not saying never use tabs, right? In the future, I plan on giving you some tabs for like exercises we're gonna do, but when it comes to learning songs, you wanna make sure that you're not relying totally just on tabs and only tabs. The next thing you should learn on guitar after learning some songs, I think should be some improvisation, right? There are plenty of ways you could practice improvisation. You can just noodle, right? I mean, you can just hop on a guitar and just noodle around, right? I don't even know what I just played. If you've seen, I messed up a little bit, right? Noodling does not have to be perfect, right? Noodling is almost like shooting around in basketball, right? You're just warming up, right? So you can do that. Another thing I would strongly suggest are backing tracks. Okay. There is a guy that makes really good backing tracks. I'll put some of his videos in the link in the description. I think you should subscribe to him and just use his backing tracks, because his backing tracks are different from like a lot of other backing tracks, right? He starts by letting you get a feel for the song. And improvising is something where you're going to have at least a decent ear for. I would suggest practicing without knowing the chords sometimes and with knowing the chords sometimes. A lot of people may ask, how am I supposed to improvise over something if I don't know the chords? And the reason why the chords are so important is because the ideal strategy to use when improvising is to follow the chord tones. That's what a lot of people suggest. And when I mean follow the chord tones, I mean follow the notes of the chords. Okay. So if we're playing guitar, right? And there's a chord progression, and the chord progression is C major, E minor, and G, right? G major. Every time they play that C major, they go right to the E minor after that. When they go to that E minor, it's really important that that's when you go to the E minor scale and you play the E minor scale. You play the E minor scale over the E minor chord. You play the G major scale over the G major chord, and you play the C major scale over the C major chord, right? That's what a lot of people mean when they say follow the chord tones. Basically, when you're improvising, you're going to mostly be using scales. What you want to do is you want to follow the notes, right, of that chord. You want to follow the notes of that chord, of the chord tones. It doesn't have to exactly be, okay, when the C major chord comes on, I hit the C fret every time. You can hit E, right? You can hit the E note when the C major scale is played, because that's a chord tone. That's the whole idea. Follow the chord tones, and it's gonna give a different feel than if you hit G on the C major chord, or if you hit C itself on the C major chord. Another thing you want to make sure you do is you want to make sure that you don't use irrelevant notes when improvising. Okay. Now, there are some notes you should use and some notes you shouldn't use. And some of those notes you shouldn't use would have been better to use at other times or other points of the backing track when certain chords were on. So you want to make sure that you're just really, really being, be free with the notes that you play, but also think, you know. Another note you can play over the C major chord, if that's the chord that comes on, you can play the B. You can play the B note. That's the seventh note. You want to play valid and relatable notes to the C major chord itself. I was just looking more and researching more into chord tones, and I plan on making some more content on things like that in the future. So far as a whole bunch of other theory stuff we've been going over so far in the video, right? I plan to make videos in the future about this stuff more, explain this stuff more in depth. So if you were looking forward to that, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. All right, let's keep going. All right, so next let's get into some technique. So technique is really just how you play it, knowing what you want to play and knowing how to play it to where it sounds beautiful and efficient. One of the things I would suggest a beginner learns about when it comes to technique is slides, pull-offs, and hammer-ons. Now, all of these are quite simple if you once you start practicing them and once you've been practicing for a while. I'll start with slides first. So slides is really just when you start on a note and then you go like, right, you bring it up. So all you got to do is pluck a note and then move it all down the guitar, right? Now this can add a whole bunch of style to some of the things you want to play and some of the genres you may want to play. Right? You can go. right? So that's really slides. It's quite simple. Once again, you're just plucking a note and then bringing it somewhere else on the neck, whether that's down, whether that's up or that's down. Now with pull-offs and hammer-ons, those are techniques you really want to make sure you learn if you want to ever learn legato. Legato is really just you hammering on the notes as you go down the fretboard and then pulling off as you go back up, right? So, right? That is really all legato is, right? But to be able to do that, you need to know how to do hammer-ons and pull-offs, right? So let's start with a hammer-on, right? So a hammer-on is really just when you pluck a note and then you hammer on to another note, okay? You could practice something as simple as that, really, right? Just learning that and just continuing to do that. Eventually you'll get used to it and you'll find yourself incorporating that into when you like play over songs or improvise over some songs. Now, when you're pulling off, all you're doing is you're grabbing a note, you're plucking it, and then you're just pulling off. So you're grabbing it, and then you're bending it down a little bit and letting it go, right? And you can really incorporate your hammer-ons and your pull-offs, right? And then eventually be able to go like, so eventually you'll be able to do stuff like that, right? Really, you'll go hammer on and then pull off, right? So I already got my note. I'm gonna pluck it, put my finger on it, and then take it off, right? You're just putting that finger on and then releasing, right? Just slightly releasing. That's all you're really doing, okay? So I would suggest learning hammer-ons and pull-offs. It's a very fun technique. I think it's essential for every guitarist to be able to do that. I think that every guitarist should be able to do that subconsciously. I mean, they should be doing that when they're doing things like improvising over backing tracks without even thinking about it. And you can do that just by doing simple things like that while noodling, or even when you practice over songs, taking, a leap of curiosity and just really trying it. It may feel uncomfortable or that you're not doing well, but really trying it. If you figured out the scale of a song and you figured out the key, let's say it is in F major, right? Let's say it is. Try some slide-ins. So I would suggest that for slides, pull-offs, and hammer-ons. Just try to incorporate it in the songs. Try to use it when you're improvising and experiment with it when you're like noodling on guitar or just playing whatever. One of the next things I would consider you learn for technique is how to bend, okay? How to bend your strings, okay? So when you bend your strings, all you do is you put a finger on a fret, you pluck it, and then you just pull it up. Or you pluck it, you bring it down, right? Now, this is the part where I have to tell you that your calluses are going to hurt for a little bit if you're just starting to practice this stuff. That's just a normal and natural part of learning guitar and truly becoming serious about it, you know? And that's okay. Just make sure you take breaks and you treat yourself well, right? When you're playing the instrument, especially a string instrument, because this is a string instrument. So take your time and just be consistent, okay? So once again, you're plucking a note and then you're bringing it down, or you're plucking a note and then you're bringing it up, okay? And eventually you're going to be able to add some style into it. right? Eventually, you're going to be able to add some styling to it. Okay, so just practice bending, just practice plucking notes, and then going up, and then going down, right? You can even also practice that in songs too, practicing that with songs. It's really important to make sure you're bending in tune though, because this is a very manual kind of technique, right? And you want to make sure you're bending in tune. Let's say the next note of a song is F, and you want to hit that note, but you want to do it in a way to where you're bending, right? And you're bending in tune to where that bend sounds like the note of F. This is F, by the way. If we go one down and we decide to bend up to the note F on this string, you could really just experiment with bending and practice this way, right? Picking notes around the note you want to make the sound of, but you don't want to hit that exact note. You want to bend and get that note. So this sounds like F, so let's go down and bend on this fret to try to get there. Right? You see how it's starting to sound similar because I'm bending up to the point to where that bend is in tune and is on the note of F, right? So just practice doing that. Practice getting a note, making that the target, and going down or up and bending that fret that once you go up and down and try to hit the note of the note you went down with. When it comes to technique, the next thing I think you should learn should be alternate picking. You're really going to want to know these kind of things when you're doing stuff like playing scales and you're playing at a higher rhythm or BPM, beats per minute. If a song is fast paced, you want to be able to play and go from string to string and do what you need to do, right? That's really important. One of the first steps to being able to do that is practicing alternate picking though. Now alternate picking, the way you do it can get really, 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 really deep, right? I mean, there comes a point you may be interested in learning that there are actually picking angles of alternate picking, but we're not into that yet, right? You just want to learn alternate picking. So you don't want the pick here or here. You want it straight and you want it like this. See how it's going up and down? That's what you want to be able to do. Now, if you really truly just started on guitar, alternate picking may be something that's new to you. And that's totally okay. I was just picking parts of a scale and playing that up and down on one string, okay, with your alternate picking. All right? So let's use the C major scale, for example. Okay? Let's use those first three notes. That's C, D, and E. We're going to use those first three notes. The first three notes of the C major scale, okay? And we're just going to go. Right? You're going to be able to pick faster by moving your pick up and down and alternate picking than if you just went like this. It's only so fast you can go if you're only picking in one direction. So you want to make sure you feel comfortable alternate picking and picking up and then down in both directions, right? So, and that's the same thing with strumming, okay? Your strumming technique would be one of the next things I would consider you place a little bit of importance on and try to focus on, okay? And when you're strumming, I'm not gonna give you like directions or like arrows of which way to strum in. Just make sure you're not only strumming down and make sure you're not only strumming up, okay? Use both, especially if you're playing acoustic guitar, okay? So, make sure you're strumming up and down. Never strum only like this. Just like you should never pick only going down. You should never pick only going up, and you should never strum only going up either. The next thing I would suggest that you learn is finger picking. Okay? Now, it's important to know how to finger pick. I think it just gives off a totally different style in guitar of a way you can do things and how you can make a note sound. Okay? So if you have a pick lose the pick. And if you've been getting through this whole video without a pick, then listen up, because I'm about to show you the proper way that you should be playing the guitar with your fingers, okay? So your thumb, your index, your middle finger, and your ring finger are going to be the two, and your, I said thumb already. Just these four. These are the four fingers you should be really focused on, okay? Now, each of these fingers have homes, okay? This thumb is the richest guy, okay? The first three strings on the guitar belongs to this guy. This guy is a real estate. This guy's a real estate agent. Okay, he has the E string, he has the A string, and he has the D string. Okay, so those are the first three strings, and then these other three fingers belong to the last three strings. So your index finger belongs to the G string. Your middle finger belongs to the B string. And then that high E string belongs to your ring finger. Okay? So you're going thumb, 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 and then your index, middle, ring. Okay? That's how you do it. Now, if you may want to play fast with finger picking, like Marcin, for example, you may know who that guy is. If you haven't, you should totally check him out. He's able to play the guitar extremely fast with only his fingers. Okay, that is because he's not exactly only using his thumb for those first three strings, right? If you truly want to play a full melody on those top strings, those top three strings that belong to the thumb, go ahead and invite some of your friends to the party up here, okay? And you can use your thumb for that first string, your pointer for that second string, or your index finger for that second string, and then your middle finger for that third string, the D string, right? And you can just practice doing this over and over again, right? I would just practice this, right? And then the same thing down here. Down here, the three fingers those belong to, once again, it's your index, your middle, and your ring finger, right? But when you're finger picking and that's the only thing you're relying on, I would focus less on the rules and focus more on getting the speed you want and being comfortable and just keeping good technique with your hand. And maybe even growing your fingernails out. If you want to ditch the pick totally, right, and never use a pick again, I mean, I would start growing your fingernails out. That could truly make things easier for you when it comes to finger picking fast. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today. That was a lot of stuff. You may have to do a lot of rewinding. This video may be or may not be for you, but I want to leave you with some confidence. I want to leave you with some motivation, okay? Just keep going, right? Just keep going, keep watching videos. This may not be the last beginner's guide video you watch. Maybe a year from now, you're going to be looking for an intermediate guide on guitar, right? Maybe by the next year, you will have improved. Everyone improves at different levels and different lengths. So just keep going. Also, this video was not the most straightforward. This video was really just to get you introduced to the things that are casually seen as important when you're first picking up a guitar. If you truly want to learn, the way of the guitar, then you're going to have to learn a lot more than just some songs and learning how to use tabs. You're going to want to really learn how to do a lot of different stuff on guitar, right? And the more, if you truly love guitar, truly love practicing and getting better at it and learning new things, you're only going to start learning more advanced stuff. And the things people call advanced now, if you take the right way to learning guitar and actually learn things in an organized and orderly fashion, by the time you get to a place in your learning process where you can go and you can learn these advanced techniques, these techniques might not even be advanced. They may be a little difficult, but they may not seem impossible. And that's because, like I said at the beginning of the video or earlier on in the video, you would have actually learned, in an organized way and learn things in order, right? So really take what I said in this video and go and look into those, focus on those, do more research on those, find more videos on those. I plan to make more videos about all of this stuff specifically and focus on just one thing, right? This was a beginner's guide. This was literally my first video doing teaching, and I plan to do some more teaching videos and just get better and better at it as time goes on. Let me know if you need any feedback in the comments on your guitar playing or practicing, any questions you have, and leave some feedback for me. Leave a comment, and yeah, just keep on going. I hope you have a blessed rest of your day, and see you in the next video.